Guys, welcome back to the Wonky Brain podcast. Sorry it has been so long since I posted an episode. I have been bedrotting for ever now. I just don't have the motivation to do anything at all. I'm on a break from work, I'm kind of working, but I'm really not. So for the most part, I just lay in bed and then go to the gym. That's all I have the capacity for. That's where I'm at right now. But I start a new therapy program tomorrow, which I'm super excited about because it'll, one, get me out of the house, but two, it'll keep my mind busy and I get to talk about some things that have really been bothering me. Um, for example, I I bed rot and get so depressed that I will see a text pop up and I know I have to answer it and I just have no care to answer it. I just want to be left completely alone. I have been isolating so much. It's insane. It is such a problem. But at the same time, I know I'm really struggling, so I'm trying to not be so hard on myself because I'm like, you know what? I have been through hell and back in the past 6 months. Yes, I've made some dumb decisions which have hurt me and put me in a really bad place. But as you guys probably know, I lost my grandma and grandpa in November. So times have been really hard. And I just don't really feel like talking to that many people. People will hit me up and be like, let's hang out, let's do something. And I'm just like, I'm sorry. I don't feel like getting to know anybody new. I don't really feel like hanging out with anybody unless you're already one of my go-to people, like my friend Kristen, my friend Tom, my friend Carolyn. Otherwise, I just don't really want to do anything. I just want to be left alone. I enjoy my peace and my solitude, but I know it's getting to a point where I'm like, okay, it's going from, oh, I'm okay to being alone to, wow, I'm really lonely and I'm isolating really, really badly. But it is what it is. Shit happens, you can't be so hard on yourself all the time, which is something I'm working on because I am my hardest critic. I constantly critique the things I do. I look at myself and I'm like, wow, you're a lazy piece of shit. You're doing nothing. But when you think about it, when you're struggling with depression or a mental illness, you're fighting to keep yourself alive every day. You're fighting to stay active, even if it's something as small as getting out of bed and taking a shower. You're still doing something. So I look at that as a win. I got out of bed today. Yeah, it was a little later than I wanted to, but I got up, I made some breakfast, and I did my hair, I did my makeup, and I put on an outfit. Yesterday, I didn't really want to do anything, but I went to the gym with my friend Kristen, and then I came home and I bed rot for 5 hours. I had people hitting me up, and I was watching the notifications pop up on my phone as I'm watching Netflix. And I'm like, yeah, no, sorry, just not answering. And I get in those moods quite a bit lately. But I don't know. I feel bad. I have so many texts that I have to answer, and I just don't want to. Because it's also then I commit to plans that I know I'm not really in the capacity to do. I don't actually want to go and do those plans. And I feel horrible because it's not that I don't want to see the person necessarily. It's just that I'm so blah lately that I don't really want to go out and bring somebody else's mood down or feel uncomfortable in a social setting. Saturday night, this past weekend, I went out for the first time in 6 weeks, besides going out to maybe an arcade with my friends or going hiking on the weekend, which I do. I love doing that because I get to be in solitude but be out of the house. But I went out and I was so anxious the whole time getting ready. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be around a lot of people. I'm going to see people that I haven't seen in a while. Super nerve wracking. Oh my God, I was literally, if you saw me doing my makeup, I was shaking. But I went out and I had a really good time. And that's not to say that if I, actually answered some of my texts and agreed to these plans, I'd probably have a good time. But it's working up to those plans, getting myself to get ready and do everything. I just want to lay in bed and cancel. And yeah, I seem like an asshole, but at the same time, I'm just trying to make ends meet over here by keeping myself alive. And that's what a lot of people don't understand with mental illness is that you're not being rude, you're not being lazy, you are just really struggling. And I know I have so many texts that I have to answer, and I will get to those, I promise. If anybody who watches my podcast is waiting for a text back, I'm sorry. It will come, I swear. Um, but don't be so hard on yourself when you're like, oh my God, wow, I did absolutely nothing today. You're alive, aren't you? Right? Like, that's something. It it's a small win, but it's a win. You're still here. And to me, that's not necessarily a small win because you could have taken an easy, I'm not going to say it's easy, but some people like to say the easy way out. And you could not be here anymore, but you are. And that's a win to me. Huge win that you are still breathing. You are still on planet Earth, you know? You're doing enough. Keep reminding yourself of that. But I am the absolute worst when it comes to social media. When I get really depressed, like I'll keep posting and stuff, but I don't like answering people when I'm in a bad mood because usually my responses are pretty pissy. Like you can feel the attitude from through the phone. Like I'm sitting there and I'm texting back like you can see the steam coming out of my ears because my head's gonna fucking explode. And everyone's like, damn, what's with the attitude? And I'm like, sorry, I'm in a bad mood. I should have just not answered. And that's why I don't answer a lot of the time, is because I'm in a really bad mood. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to be rude. There's no need to be rude. The person's just asking me, hey, how are you? And I get so annoyed. Like, if people ask me how I am multiple times in a day or ask me what I'm doing multiple times in a day, I get annoyed. I will be like, you asked me that an hour ago. I'm still the same. And so instead, I just don't answer. I save everybody from angry me. And I don't know, it's been like that for the probably since I would say November. I've just been very closed off. Like I have people hit me up to go out and get coffee. Guys will ask me to go out on a date and I'm just like, I don't have the capacity for it. I really don't. And if I do go out, I'm probably not going to have that much fun, or I'm not going to want to go out with you again because I wasn't really into it in the first place. So everybody who gets offended, they're like, oh, Sierra's such a bitch. She doesn't want to do anything. I'm saving us both, okay? Because I want to be in a headspace where I'm like, you know what? No, I know I'm going to have fun. I know that we're both going to have fun and that I'm probably going to want to see you again because, well, I actually enjoyed the first plans we had. You know, I was mentally ready to do that. But if I'm not mentally ready, I'm not going to say yes. And people are like, oh, well, that's just rude. You say no to everybody. And it's like, no, I say yes to my close people, you know, to the people who know what I'm going through. Because these past 6 months have been absolute hell for me. I have been going through a really, really tough time. And yes, some of the things I'm going through are my own fault, are decisions that I made that put me here. But at the same time, it still hurts, you know? Like I look at those decisions I made and I'm like, wow, I did those because of a lot of pent up trauma and a lot of pent up mental illness that I just did not take care of. So, you know, me starting this new therapy program is going to be really good. I'm going to be able to work through a lot of stuff and be in that headspace to want to actually be a part of society and be able to answer people's texts and like Snapchat and whatever. Everything's so draining. Like, oh God, I just want to sleep all the time. I just want to nap. I literally was sitting down to record this and I was like, oh, a nap sounds so good right now. And it still does. I'm not going to lie, I might take one after I finish recording this. But I don't know. I feel like a part of me has really, really been trying to get over the fact that I am going through stuff and I'm gonna have days that are really, really shitty. Like, I'm not always gonna have good days, and those bad days, sometimes they're gonna be really, really fucking bad, you know? Like, sometimes I'm just not gonna wanna get out of bed whatsoever. But I remind myself that I'm still here. You know, I think I've talked about it in my past episodes that I overdosed in October. I was in a coma for 2 days. I could not be here right now, you know? Like, I could be gone. I could have died that day. I stopped breathing. I was 2 minutes away from death. But I'm still here. And so for me, that's a win. And right now, the fact that I'm still breathing and I'm trying to get small tasks done, like starting therapy, you know, figuring out my health insurance, that was a whole thing for a while that I was stressed about. You know, just simple little things, like little tasks of calling people back, you know, making calls that I have to make, making appointments that I have to make. those are the things that I'm focused on right now. I'm not super focused on relationships or anything like that. You know, I'm not in the mental state to get into a relationship. I talked about that in one episode. I never ended up posting that episode. It wasn't my favorite episode that I've done, but I was talking about in it that you are allowed to be in a relationship. You don't have to fully love yourself to be in a relationship, because you can learn to love yourself with somebody by your side. I truly do believe that. But at the same time, you also want to make sure that you are mentally prepared to be able to handle somebody else's stress along with your own. You have to be able to handle somebody else's problems along with your own. And if you can't, then maybe a relationship isn't what you need. You know, you should take more time to focus on yourself, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. Is just, you know, dealing with the really lonely nights. I'm not gonna lie, last night I was really sad that I was in bed alone. You know, not even like sexual wise. I just wanted to be held. That's so sad. But it's so true. Like last night I just wanted somebody to hold me and like tell me everything was gonna be okay. But I have to do that for myself right now. I have to be that person. Even if you want to give yourself a little hug, ain't nothing wrong with that. Give yourself a little hug and be like, it is going to be okay. You know, time flies. It is already the end of February. The end of it. We just had February. It's the end of February. Keep that in mind. This year is going to fly by, and things aren't going to be so bad next year. You know, you have to remember that everything comes to an end. I say that a lot in this because it is true. Everything bad has an end. You know, the same way everything good comes to an end, so does everything bad. So 6 months from now, you're going to be like, all right, you know what? Shit's not so bad anymore. Year from now, shit's not so bad anymore. But you have to put in the work to make sure that a year from now, you're not looking back like, damn, I wasted so much time that I could have taken to get better and to really focus on myself. You know, you don't want to look back and be like, fuck, dude, I'm in the same exact spot I was a year ago. Because my goal is next year to be a completely different person, you know, to be very, very different, to be changed, to be more mentally healthy, and to be stable and happy with myself. Like, yes, there are days that I'm so happy with who I am. You know, I've come a long way, but then I have reminders of things I've done in the past, and I'm like, oh, you know, that's a shitty feeling. But recently, I started hanging out with my friend Tyler a bit more. Shout out Tyler. Thank you for everything you've done for me. But he had me go to this school program that he volunteers at, and I was sat in on the welding class twice, and I love it. You know, everything I do, my brain is so loud. You know, it's always going. Thoughts are constantly going, going, going. But I sat in on this welding class, and I realized for the first time, besides maybe the gym, because even then my voice, like my brain gets a little loud. But this class, my brain was completely silent. I don't think I've fully ever experienced that, where I was just sitting there and I was so focused on what the teacher was talking about. And then I was watching the students weld, and I was like, this is what I want to do. So hopefully in the fall, I will be starting welding school. And then by this time next year, hopefully I'll have a job in welding, you know? I'll be a completely different person. I'll have a set schedule. I'll have the job I want. And you have to manifest those things, you know? I say I hope, but I'm just going to sit here and be like, no, it's going to happen. You know, you want to tell yourself that those things that you want are going to come to you. Good things will come. But you have to have the time and patience to put in that effort to get there, you know? They don't just randomly appear into your life. People sit there and say, oh, one day I'm going to be rich. Do the things you can to get yourself there, you know? You want those things for yourself. Do the things you can now so that in 10 years, you're not looking back like, damn, I wasted hella time. I missed out on a lot. Could have done more for myself. I might be in a different spot right now. I don't want that. So right now, I'm just taking the time to really work on myself, make sure that by fall, I'm fully ready for school. It's like end of summer, beginning of fall. And that next year, I look back on where I am right now and I laugh at it. And I'm like, remember that bitch couldn't even answer a text. That bitch couldn't get up out of bed. And now I'm awake at 5 in the morning making breakfast for myself to go to my cool welding job. That's what I want. And that is something that I'm going to work towards. But like I keep saying, you have to put in the effort. You have to take the time to really get to know the nitty gritty parts of yourself, like the really fucked up crevices of your brain. Get to know them. Get to know those really dark thoughts so that you can learn to work through them. You know, I've been doing that a lot myself when I get into that ruminating fucking shit. Like when I start thinking about the past too much, I'm like, no, I can't change it. It's not who I am anymore. I am a very different person now, and I'm going to continue to work to be the best version of myself. Fuck that past self, you know? But that's going to take time. I'm not sitting here saying any of this is going to be easy because it's not. It's going to suck. You know, I think back to my September self and I laugh about it because I'm like, damn, this me would never do the things that she did, would never be so careless and reckless, would never let myself get to that point with drinking, with anything. You know, but then I also think back to 3 years ago when I was a raging drug addict and drinking all the time and didn't give a fuck about my life. And I'm like, God, we have come a long way. Yeah, we've made some mistakes along the way, but we've come a long way from that. I'm not sitting in my room on a Tuesday night ripping lines of Coke with a bottle of tequila by myself. I'm not doing that anymore, so that's a win. You have to look at the small things and be like, you know what? That's a win. That's a win in my book. I could be doing a lot worse. So here I am now. Yeah, I'm struggling with depression, but I'm taking the steps to figure it out, to work through my BPD, to work through the symptoms of it. And I apologize to anybody that I haven't answered, but I also do try to tell people like, hey, I'm struggling right now, so if I don't get back to you, please don't take it to heart because it is not just you, it's pretty much everybody. You can ask my mom. Sometimes she doesn't hear from me until 6 p.m. and she's like, I'm almost home from work anyway. Why'd you text me back? It's just how it is. You're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days. Don't be so hard on yourself. Life isn't that serious. Society puts this fucking huge pressure on us to be these people that we're not. Take your time. You don't have to be 23. I'm 23. We're going to use my age as an example. You don't have to be 23 with everything figured out. You just don't. That's society putting that on you. You're only 23. There are people in their 40s and 50s who are miserable now because when they were 17, 18, 19, they just jumped into a career or went to school because that's what they were told to do. And now they're miserable and they're like, man, I really hate my job. This isn't what I wanted to do with my life. But now I'm too old to change it. So why don't you just take the time when you're young, because you are young right now, to figure it out? And even if you are at that age, if you are in your 40s and 50s and watching this, you can still go back to school, find a new. I just saw something. This guy was like 80 or 90 years old, oldest graduate from his college. But he had the time, so he said, you know what? I'm going to go back and do something that I really love. And you are allowed to do that. You are allowed to take the time to like really get to know yourself again. Who's telling you you can't? Society? Fuck society. I'm so over it. All these social agendas, all this, you have to be this, you have to be that, you have to know this by this age, you have to be in school by this age. Enough of that shit. Get it out of here. We don't accept that energy over here. Because you can go to school if you want to. You can go to trade school if you want to. You don't have to go to school if you don't want to. You can figure it out. You can take the time. And that's what I'm doing right now. Like, I'm 23, going into welding school in however many months, sometime this year. And then I'm going to be 24, right about the time that I'm like getting out of the class. That's not weird. That's not crazy. It just took me more time to figure out something that I want to do. But now I know what I want to do, and I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty set on this. This is something that really, really interests me. Instead of me being 17, going to college, having no clue what I wanted, just picking a random major, and then being miserable at this age because that's what society told me to do. No. Get that shit out of here. Take the time to figure out whatever it is you need to figure out. Life no, it doesn't stop for you. But at the same time, you can make yourself stop and look at life and be like, okay, this is something I need to work on. This is something that I have pretty much set. And then this is something that, it's not that super important right now, so I'm going to put it on the back burner. Take the time, and that's something I really need to do with those texts is take the time to respond to them. So I hope you guys come back to the next episode. Please share, subscribe, like, whatever, all that, yada, yada. And I'll see you guys next time. So